everyone. Pull up a chair and get comfy.
Oh, girl, have we got stories to tell you all. The Never Alone podcast is about to begin, and you don't want to miss a minute.
Hi, and welcome back to our podcast, the Never Alone podcast. I'm your host, Iris Fisher-Smith, and tonight we're missing my co-host. She had a death in the family, and so we're wishing her well, and we're praying for her and, wanting to encourage her. And she'll be back next week, but it was a bit of a shock, and so we're thinking of Karen tonight. But tonight I have my friend Cindy Kinney back with me, and she's one of my friends that I've had out here in Washington State. We've been friends now for about 7 years. And before we go into what we're going to talk about tonight in the topic, I just wanted to say that if you are, enjoying the podcast, if you could like and share it and comment, we would sure appreciate it. So Cindy and I, as I said, have been friends for about 7 years now. And we have a unique friendship. And I think it's unique because we both came from very different backgrounds. I grew up in the Northeast in the Boston area, and she grew up in Washington State. And yet we have found commonalities in our relationship, and it's taken some work. It's not that friendship takes work. I don't mean it like that. It takes time. It takes cultivating, right, Cindy? How would you describe friendship yourself, and how did we become friends? Do you remember?
Well, I think that the first thing is that you need to be able to be, I guess, open to learning about another person.
Yeah.
And seeing if that person is, someone that is going to end up being a good friend to you.
Yeah, because personalities don't always
just
connect.
investing time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so do you remember how we became friends? I know we talked a little bit about it in one other segment, but it was really unique how we connected. I found, not every person connects because their personalities are different. Even though we came from very, very different backgrounds, our personalities were similar. We both liked to reach out to other people. We were both friendly. We both liked to be helpful. We liked to go out and play, by going out to dinner and getting together with our husbands. We found so many commonalities. But I think the biggest commonality that I found that I really liked about you in the beginning is how you were others oriented and you thought about other people, and we both actually met in church, if you remember that. And we just started talking. We met at a breakfast after that. There was a woman's breakfast, and I think it was, what was the name of the restaurant? Do you remember?
The Willow and Jim's?
No, it was the one before
Is that where it was meeting then? Oh gosh, where were we meeting before that? I don't remember.
What was it?
But one
Denny's.
thing for
Was it
me
Denny's?
is,
It was Denny's.
was it
Yeah,
Denny's?
Denny's.
Okay. Yes. Okay. I think for me, I've been a hairdresser for, 40 some years.
Right.
And so I really enjoy people. I love getting to know people's stories. And through that, a lot of times I've made, close connections, but
Fun.
still, yeah.
I forgot about that. You're my
But-
hairdresser. See? Look.
Yeah.
If you don't like my
So
hair,
I
blame
really,
her.
I like to talk to people. I like to learn about their stories, and I like to get to know them as a person. But when it comes to someone that I would end up considering a close friend, it takes some, kind of trial by fire kind of thing where, is this person trustworthy?
Mhm.
Is this person, a person of their word? Is this person reliable?
Loyalty
know,
is important to you.
Yeah. And, is this person going to be, honest with me in a loving way? I mean, they're not there to harm me. They're not trying to, do anything against me, but they want my best interests. They have my best interests at heart. So that's important to me for a good friend.
Yeah.
I've only had what I would consider a few close friends in my life just because of that. I've met a lot of people. I know a lot of people, but I wouldn't consider them, a good friend or a close friend, just because, it takes a special bond. It takes, like you said, having some commonalities,
Oh, yeah.
Give and take, reaching out to one another, building that relationship. And then, eventually then you open yourself up and you're more vulnerable,
Right,
right?
right.
And you can share deeper kind of things that have happened to you in your life and, things like that.
I think it's
Um,
important that we feel, all of us feel safe, especially these days with people. Like you said, can I trust this person? How far can I bring this friendship in terms of what I can share? Is this person a confidant type thing? So there's different levels of friendship, like you and I have talked about before, where you come from a totally different background. Tell me a little bit about how you grew up that may be attributed to some of the ways you feel. Why is loyalty so important to you? Did something take place?
well, I think that I also, before I became a cosmetologist, I worked in the restaurant business.
Oh, okay. That's right. Yeah.
And yeah, yeah. And, I was, dabbling in some things that I probably shouldn't have been and, out there with people that maybe weren't the best influences but it, I think about, whether you can, well, I think about peer pressure. That's what I think about when I was growing up,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, we all had that.
Well, and I think even as adults, we still have that. We kind of still feel like we're being somewhat pressured or influenced by other people, and we have to really know, I guess, who we are, learn more about who we are and what's important to us, so that we can then say, no, I don't agree with that. I mean, you don't have to be harsh or rude. You can just say, no, I don't agree with that, or I don't want to do that, or I don't want to put myself in a situation. I had one guy one time tell me, he says, well, have you been around? And I'm like,
What does that mean?
yeah, I thought, I guess I've been around. Well, he actually wanted me to shoot drugs.
Oh boy, that's something I've not expected.
And I was like, you're nuts, right? But, I mean, it's like, obviously he wasn't going to be a good friend.
Hell no.
But, I mean, we find ourselves in situations
Would you
a lot
call
of
that
times
a
that we
red
have to-
flag?
That's a real right? But just because you're being pressured doesn't mean you have to, continue a relationship with somebody that's, making you feel uncomfortable or, really doing something is not okay
Right.
with you,
Yeah.
or putting you at risk in some way.
Right. But tell me a little bit about how you grew up, how many sisters and brothers you had. What was your home life like, growing up?
I am the baby. My mom had 4 kids by the time she was 20.
Wow. Okay.
I had 2 older brothers and an older sister. So we were, boom, 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 boom. Really close in age. So, and of course I had I guess back then, the typical upbringing where the big brothers tortured the sisters.
Very nice.
Indian torture, that kind of stuff they called it. So, yeah, I got picked on, teased, and of course I'm the baby, right? So I'm going to whine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a tough, I think, really tough for my parents, being so young and having so
How
many
old was your
children so
mother?
quickly. She was 20,
20,
when
okay.
she had me.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
young.
So it is. It is.
What
yeah.
was the age difference
So
between? I'm sorry.
what's that? I said they struggled financially, of course.
Of course.
But they did their part. They were hardworking people.
Yeah.
The minute my mom put me on the school bus for kindergarten, that she talked to the bus driver that picked me up, and the bus driver said, "Hey, they're hiring." And she went down, and then she was a bus driver for like over 40 some years. So
Yeah. See, back then, my mother was also a hard worker. She was a stay-at-home mom because she had 4 kids for quite a while. And then my parents got divorced and she went to work immediately. I mean, she didn't even question it. She knew she had kids to support. And she just did it like a bull in a china shop there. It just, you know, back then people they had work ethics. They didn't think about, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? They were like, how can I support these children? And how can I, get on to the next thing and make a living?
Yeah.
Today.
And with my mom being so
Yeah.
young, she felt like she was growing up with us.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
So she wasn't like, I don't know if what you call a typical mother. I think my older sister stepped into a lot of that role with taking care of, planning meals and cooking and
Yeah.
and shopping and all that kind of stuff as she got older.
Right.
And yeah, so I don't know if I really felt like my mom she wasn't like a real nurturing, stay at home mom kind of person.
Yeah.
I think she was struggling herself because she was so young and just learning along the way and, having so many children at such a young age. So I guess that molded and shaped me, I think I had a little more freedom to come and go.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Did your older siblings try to help you at all when she was working? And
like I said, my sister would plan the meals and stuff, but it was mainly for the whole family. I didn't really feel that close to my siblings when I was growing up. I think just because we were all so close in age and then we were all doing our own separate things.
Okay.
So my sister and I are only 11 months apart,
Yeah.
but we never had the same friends or the same activities or anything like that. So, we kind of got thrown out there in the world and just had to learn some hard lessons with
Mhm.
who we could trust and who we couldn't trust. So,
So you had to learn a lot of this. Your mother didn't necessarily teach you. I
right.
find that interesting because I look back, and of course, I've told you before, and I've mentioned this in other segments, and it's in my book about how I had a burst appendix when I was very young. So I had the opposite experience. My mother was teaching me a lot. And one of the things that she said to me, and here I am coming out of a coma, and I'm having to learn to walk and talk again. And it was such a process. And I used to think that she was mean because she was pushing me. She was pushing me to be as independent as I could be back then. And I remember her saying to me, and I might have mentioned this in other segments, she said, if I start to baby you too much, if I take care of you too much, I will cripple you in another way. She didn't want me to be dependent on others because she said to me, I'm not going to always be around. And I want you to live your life to the best of your ability. So I learned very early on to work hard, as you say, but differently than you.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes. And I didn't get those.
I had to work at living,
Yes. I didn't get that instruction. I didn't get those, that type of teaching.
Yeah.
Ours was more by example.
Yeah. And you can learn that way too. It's everybody's so different, right?
Mhm.
And that's why we're having this conversation, because I'm hoping that our viewers and listeners can gain something from what we're saying, because we live in a world that's so diverse. We all come from a place where we have parents, right? But they're all different. And I find that, life happens, right? And the parents do the very best that they can. Is there any such thing as a perfect parent? Absolutely not. But as long as a child
Mhm.
knows that they're loved, what else do you really need? And my life wasn't perfect. I
Yes.
had an attentive mother, but it wasn't perfect. She did the very best that she could. And like I said, after the divorce, when she had to go to work, my life shifted. I was 14, from having this mother that was there to guide me a lot to she wasn't available a lot. So what I
Yeah.
did at that point, because I learned from her, is I turned to other mentors. Did you ever have mentors
Yeah.
in your life that you might have turned to when you were growing up? Do you remember anything like that?
No, not really. I had to learn some real hard lessons
By
living
Yeah.
it and
making
yeah,
mistakes,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
So, I was in an abusive marriage for 16 years first, and that I learned a lot through that. And that's when I really got to my knees. I just trusted God then from from then on because I couldn't do it. I'm ready. I'm having nervous breakdowns and I couldn't do it. So, and back then it was hard because I didn't really have any close friends because the people that we were, involved with or, weren't making real good choices themselves. So,
Right.
but I would encourage people to, kind of, open yourself up to meet people and start the process of seeing if that person is going to be a good friend for you. Give them the opportunity to, show their character to
Right.
you. And, I was thinking about this and I thought, it's somewhat, like dating or, just any relationship that you're building, you're looking at this person as, like that are they a person of integrity? Are they a person of their word? Are they trustworthy? All that kind of stuff. And so, just to be, I guess, just allow yourself to at least open the door a little bit
Yeah.
to other people so that you can learn about them. And then you can make that decision, is this a relationship I want to, pursue more? And then, of course, if it is, then you make a conscious effort to, to be calling or texting or communicating in some way with that person to say, hey, I'm thinking about you, or how's your day?
That's yeah. Yep. And the other thing
This
is,
is what I'm up to. What are you up to?
well, I have a question.
Please excuse this brief interruption for a shameless commercial. Remember, you can get your own copy of Iris's book, Never Alone, at irisfsmith.com.
If we could back up, and circle back to, when you said you had your bad marriage, do you think that the marriage that you went through that was so incredibly hard and challenging, do you think that that had a lot to do with why you set the bar so high in terms of loyalty with a friend and this trust issue thing? Because it would for me, I would think that would be normal. And I'm wondering if you can elaborate on that a little bit to maybe speak to somebody that's going through that, because a lot of people have experienced relationships like that. I have a sister that went through at least two that were like that. And it really affected her.
Well, I think, yeah, absolutely. It affects you and your self-esteem. And I would just encourage people to do what they can to better themselves. I did get involved with Al-Anon and Nar-Anon and those type of support groups so that I could understand what healthy was.
Was he an alcoholic?
Because
Cindy?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There was other vices as well, but that was the main issue, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, addiction's addiction.
So,
just to be able to understand what healthy is.
Yeah.
And that's going to carry you over into all of your relationships, then you can recognize it if you know what a healthy relationship is.
And that's the positive part.
if-
You learned from it. And so you learned what to recognize. So you're not making repeating the same, choices and
Yeah.
consequences.
Well, and you can say that's a lie. That's a lie. I don't believe that. If you know that it's not true, if somebody is trying to tell you something that is not true and you're strong enough in yourself and know what is right and true, then you could say that's not true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I would encourage people is, to really work on you. To know who you are, what's important to you. And then that helps you in your relationships, because then you're not attracting or wasting time with, cultivating relationships that are not going to be healthy
Right.
for you.
Well, I have a question because I remember I have a couple of different relatives that kept repeating the same mistake by going into the same type of relationship that was extremely abusive. It's almost like
It's what they know. It's what
they know. Okay, yeah. So I wondered what would make somebody continue to make the same mistakes and what helped you not to
Because
do that.
they're not growing.
They're not growing.
They're not growing themselves. They're not figuring out why was it bad. why did the other relationship end?
Mm-hmm.
How, what was their part in that? I mean, we all have a part in it, right?
Yeah.
Because I was just one person. And, one thing I learned from it, with, the 12-step program and all that is I had to be responsible for my reactions
Yeah.
and my actions, but my reactions, because I felt totally justified in the way that I reacted
Yeah.
because what he had done,
Yeah.
right? But I had to take responsibility for that. Even
So
though,
you could be.
it was really hard. It was really hard to bite my tongue because it's like I felt totally justified, but I understood
Yeah.
the importance of taking responsibility for my part.
So you could be
whether I
healthy.
felt.
Yeah. Um,
Mhm.
I'm thinking of one of my relatives that kept repeating the same pattern. And what it was, from what I understand, is like you said, that's all she knew, and it puzzled me because I thought, well, don't you want to feel better and be around people that are a little more uplifting instead of abusive? But a lot of,
Well, part of it
here's
is
the thing,
not
before you
just,
go on, here's the thing. There were a lot of drugs and alcohol involved. And I think that
yeah,
skewed their, thinking and their ability to be able to make right choices. See, I can reason because I'm not doing drugs and
right.
alcohol,
Well, and it's not just what they know; it's they don't know. It's what they're used to. It's what they know, but they're not trying to be healthy themselves. Healthy attracts healthy,
Yeah. Yep.
right? Unhealthy attracts unhealthy. So you have to make sure that you're being healthy, that you're taking care of yourself. So then you can attract people in your life that are better for you
Well, I had somebody ask
instead
me,
of making your life worse.
right. I
Huh?
had somebody ask me, how do you do that? Because some people just don't know. How do you make yourself healthy? Does that come from choices? Does it come from, because I have another person that I know, and this is a common thing with the alcohol and drugs these days. And I think it's always been around, but I'm thinking of one person that does not know how to give up alcohol. And no matter how miserable
Well,
that
it
person
can be an
is, they
addiction.
stay in it. What makes somebody do that? Why can't they?
It's an addiction.
Okay. Physical?
People have to get to the point where they want to change. They want to stop. They can see how destructive the behavior is
Right.
and how it's affecting their lives.
Mhm.
And then they'll change or they won't change. But they have to recognize that to be able to get out of it.
And
But I'm talking more about people that
Yeah.
that are not necessarily making those decisions, but are with somebody or they're attracting people that are doing that. So I think, like I said, you have to figure out what are your morals and values? What are important to you? Make that list of what's important in a relationship for you. And, and then make sure that if you're building a relationship with somebody that they're not, doing things that are against what you believe or what you want in a relationship. And if they're doing that, then it's a red flag right away. I mean, you're like, okay, nope, I can't continue to nurture that relationship or to build that relationship because it's detrimental to who I am, what I believe, what I want, all those things.
Yeah.
That you can't, I mean, I wouldn't encourage somebody to get into a relationship with someone with addiction and think that you're going to change them.
Exactly. A lot of people think that.
Don't you?
Yeah. That's true.
But if you're in it, then if you can step away from it, you do. Like if it's just a friend, right? And it's detrimental to you, then you have to kind of start distancing yourself from that if it's detrimental to you. If it's a spouse, then it's just building yourself, being healthy yourself, making the type of choices for yourself that's not, causing it to be worse. Like right away. I mean, I used to do a variety of things, drinking and smoking and drugs and all this type of stuff. And I just stopped everything because there was so much abuse of it. on my husband's part. And
Right. So
I
you
had
just,
to step totally back, I had to stop doing it for myself.
yeah.
So I could think clearly, so I could make good decisions, so I could be healthy.
Mhm. What helped to make you strong and to head in that direction? For me, a lot of what has helped me throughout my life and getting through, because I've always had, health issues, all right, was my faith, and looking for direction. When I got married, we dated for a while, and it was very apparent to me that because I grew up going to summer camp every summer, I wanted a man who was family oriented and not perfect, but family oriented, that had the same type of beliefs, but also had the same type of interests. When I met my husband, Si,
Well, you were smart.
well,
You were wise. I didn't have the list even when I
no, no,
met
no,
my
no.
first husband.
I'm not saying that. What I'm trying to say is I'm just talking about what caused me to make those choices. I wanted someone
Yeah.
that had some commonality with me. And, we had our ups and downs as marriages do.
That's why I said you were smart.
But, we had our ups and downs, as marriages do, because relationships are work. They are. And they're not easy. And they take cultivation, they take time, they take communication. And that's one of the things that helped us in our friendship is getting to know each other. How did we get to know each other? We talked and we shared and we listened and we accepted each other for who we are, the way we are. I grew up this way, you grew up that way. But you know what? Let's help each other. Let's encourage each other. Let's have fun, you know? So what makes a good
Yeah.
friend?
Well, it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting that the things that attracted you to somebody in the first place, a lot of times start driving you a little bit crazy. But then you have to remind yourself that's what you value about that person, right?
Yeah. 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 It's true.
Yeah.
So,
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely in relationships. Yeah, you have to cultivate it. You have to make time
yeah.
to communicate and to encourage one another, and you know, just encourage that person to know that you're a person that's safe
That's
for them
right.
to talk to,
Yeah.
right?
We all have different reasons why we need to feel safe with people. I, for example, wrote a book and I wrote the things that I wanted people to hear. Well, I have, things that are very personal to me that I'll only share with people that I know, number one, won't judge, won't think about it later. I'm already past it and they're still thinking about it, but, that also, will support me and say, I'm praying for you. I'm here for you. And me doing the same thing for them, and it's just so important. So here we are talking about what makes a good friendship. Okay. And to summarize this, just it's taking time and communication and accepting each other for who they are, the way they are. And it's also interesting to me how people get so incredibly needy, and we all do. Okay. It's easy to think about, oh my goodness, what about me? But, there's a scripture in the Bible that says if you want to have a friend, you have to show yourself friendly, right? And if you want to affect somebody, reach out and make it about them first. When I worked with Johnny and Friends Ministry for many years, one of the things I learned from her is to make it about the other person. So it's not in taking that we get, it's in giving that we get. And that's to me is what makes a good friendship is when you're giving. And you and I have done that for each other. We give, we think about the other person. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I think that for the most part, people aren't going to have a mass amount of what you would call good, close friends. And that you have to be, wise and picky about that, you know, because
But here's the thing,
it's
friendship is so important. What would you recommend to somebody today where you have all these friendships so-called online, where you're not meeting face to face and you're not able to experience those close relationships? This is a kind of an epidemic where people are online or on their phones more than they are face to face in person, hugging each other, making plans, going and seeing each other, face to face. What can somebody do today?
I think that it's very difficult for people to really know who that person is that they're communicating with.
Yeah.
if you're really not able to live life together,
Mhm.
you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Apart from just texting or calling. I mean, it's really hard to know if, what that person's really about.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't get to know somebody through a text. You can't hear their voice,
And
you
I
know?
think, I think too that there's so many distractions that even if you're talking to them, you've got all these other things going on.
Yeah.
And so you're not really, you know, paying close attention or giving them your undivided attention.
Yeah.
And I think that there's probably a lot that's missed then in regards to like, body language and facial expressions and tone. And I mean, all those things can cause you to misunderstand what somebody's really meaning or saying.
Yeah. Well, this has been a good conversation and, we're going to close out for now, but I just wanted to close out by saying, thank you for viewing and listening to us. And we do hope that you've gained something from our conversation. My concern, and so many people are concerned about this day and age where people are so lonely and isolated. And I would encourage people to reach out to someone that you think you can connect with and trust. You have to start one person at a time, but it's very important to
Mhm.
have someone that you can talk to and have as a confidant and just pour out your heart to. We all need friends. We all need community. It's very important. And I just want to close with that. And, thank you for listening to us. And like I said, if you are gaining something from our conversations and, this podcast, I hope that you will like and share it and comment. And, we wish you well. And we hope to see you in the next segment. Thank you for joining us. Good night for now.
Yeah. Thank you.
Wow, that was awesome, wasn't it?
I know those stories were really something.
Hey, thanks everyone for joining us. We'll see you next time when we share more stories from Iris's book, Never Alone.
Order your copy of Never Alone at irisfsmith.com today.